We are showing you here live footage, so they are just about to start speaking now.
Turn the treble in the boats.
Live footage from West Australian Parliament. We have the WA farmers are pushing back on the implementation from July 1, the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act. So you can just see, we'll just see if Clayton does a quick pan around on the back of the camera. So we will be bringing you footage of what is occurring down here at Parliament, Western Australia. You can see about 10 minutes ago, everybody was huddled up underneath these steps because it was chucking it down. But undeterred by the weather, and of course rain is nothing new to West Australian farmers, it certainly is the lifeline of their industry. We've been told that this meeting between the WA farmers and the Roger Cook-led Labor government, of course, was due to occur previously, but we saw over the weekend that there was an announcement. 7 West media led that first, saying that they were going to repeal the Act, and it's been absolutely nothing but radio silence since then. We're just waiting for a few comments to come through. And I'm probably just going to check my phone in the background just to make sure. So if we could just get a comment from somebody to let Clayton know that the audio is good. We will be bringing you all of the meeting down here on the steps of Parliament House, Perth, Western Australia. Audio, video is good. Thank you very much. From Richo, a regular. G'day, Richo, and mate, appreciate that. It's always reassuring to know when those comments come in, and especially from the likes of yourself, because we know that it is accurate. So we are seeing some comments coming through that Roger Cook has said that the Act is over. We will be getting some comments from Tony Seabrook a little bit later after this meeting here today. But of course, what people need to recognise is that it actually is not over until Parliament sits to repeal the amendments. That's point number one that I guess is important to note. But the Act itself still has some very onerous provisions within that if the WA government, let's just say, wanted to take a vindictive approach in relation to this pushback, because this is a significant defeat for Roger Cook and also Minister Tony Booty, saying that they were ready for this and they're clearly not, and that's why you've got the images that you've seen over the past 2 months in relation to this. All good? Yep, comments are all good. So we have a new rig here. There seems to be a reluctance. If we move forward, maybe everybody else might move forward to make some room for the farmers. Maybe should we see if we get a few comments? So we have John Hassel is now the person you can see there. John Hassel is the president.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. We are here today at the behest of Shane Love, Leader of the Opposition, to deliver some motions from the Katanning meeting. So I'll introduce Shane for starters, and then we'll get into things proper. Shane.
Thanks very much, John, and welcome to everybody. Welcome to Parliament. This is your Parliament. This is your voice. Your voice, your Parliament. Welcome to the Parliament of Western Australia. We're here to listen to you. I understand that you've come here because you've got great concerns about the future of your industries, and I've heard your voice down in Katanning, and I invited John and others to come along and present the findings from your meeting in Katanning today. But the pressure that you have put on, and the pressure that communities right across Western Australia have exerted on the Labor government, have led to a complete backdown, which is announced today, and a repeal of the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act will, I understand, be launched in the Parliament. This is a great testament to people power. It's a great testament to every one of you. It's a great testament to those 30,000 people who signed that petition, to all those people who expressed their concerns right across the state at those so-called education sessions that were held, to all of that faux consultation that never took place. That was a rejection of you of what has been a failed act, a bad piece of legislation that was rammed through this place and should never have been foisted on the community. You deserve an apology. You got one today from the Premier, but we're there to make sure that this never happens again. You cannot trust the Labor government. You cannot trust that this will not come back in another guise. Whether it be the new water legislation, whatever it is in the future, they have an agenda that they will keep pushing. The only way that we can stop them is to push back. And as today is a great day for you and for the communities that you come from, that you've been able to exert such pressure that the government has buckled under it. They've buckled, they've retreated for now. But don't trust them. You can't trust them. You can't trust Tony Booty. You can't trust Roger Cook. You cannot trust the Labor government. I'm here with my colleagues from the National and Liberal Party. I recognise my Deputy Peter Rundle, the Leader of the Liberal Party, Libby Madam, Neil Thompson's here, Steve Martin, Cole de Grisou and a whole bunch of others who are all here, have been supporting you all the way through. And we want to keep supporting you into the future. That the only way that you can be assured of having your private property rights protected into the future is to get rid of the Labor government in 2025. And I ask you to work hard to do that. I want to acknowledge the work that John Hassel has done, the work that Tony Seabrook has done, and so many other people who have helped in organising today, but also organising the resistance, if you like, against this failed legislation over the last 5 weeks. It's a testament to you. I thank you. I'm ready to receive from John the findings from that Katanning meeting, knowing that the events of today have actually gone beyond what we'd expected even then. So congratulations to you all, and I'll hand back to John to introduce the next speaker. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll very briefly introduce Libby Madam, and Tony Booty has decided to come and join us, and I think good on him for doing so, and he will speak after we've done our presentation. So I'll welcome Libby to the microphone, please.
Thank you, John, and I've been allowed to just say a few words. But from the outset, can I thank you all for making the effort to travel here today from your properties right across Western Australia. We in the Liberal Party, as do the National Party, support what you do. There has been an incredible effort to get to this point here today, where we have seen an extraordinary backdown by the Cook Labor government. When myself, Neil Thompson, initiated a petition, it attracted over 29,000 signatures calling for a pause on what has been the worst piece of legislation ever introduced into this Parliament. When we as an opposition raised legitimate concerns on your behalf in this place, we were called racists. We were compared to dogs returning to our vomit. We were accused of dog whistling, and the Cook Labor government hoped this issue would just go away. But here you are. Here you are, showing up to forums, coming to the steps of Parliament and supporting one of the largest petitions this state has ever seen, calling on the Cook Labor government to repeal what has been a disastrous Act as an incredible overreach on private property rights, and it is fortunate that we have seen a rethink from this government. But as my colleague, the Leader of the Opposition, Shane Love, has said, the action and the attention does not stop here. Look what this Cook Labor government just tried to get away with. When we raised these questions in Parliament, our Premier said that the arguments made by the farming industry are not accurate. He stated, if anything, the farming industry would be the least impacted by these laws. And when he also said, these reforms are not radical, these laws are ready to go. He also said they are fair and simple. It's extraordinary what this Labor government will try to get away with if given the chance. And that's why we need to keep the pressure on this government until 2025, until we get that opportunity to overthrow a government who are increasingly out of touch with the needs of ordinary, hard-working Western Australians.
I do apologise for the lack of being able to hear. It's a bit of a challenge. We didn't know how many people we were going to get, and I'm really pleased that you made the effort. There's a lot of farmers in the state who are disappointed you're not getting very wet right now. But I did look at the radar and you're clear for a while. So first of all, welcome everybody here. I'd like to acknowledge all the politicians who have made an effort to come here today. Tony Seabrook, President of the PGA, and Alistair Falconer from WA Grains Group, who we've worked with to try and get to this point. And I think we've done a pretty fair job. It hasn't always been plain sailing. We've had a few words at each other, but I think we've got a really good outcome as of today. So whether you have heritage that lasts over 250 years in this country, whether your forebears came here to make a better life for themselves, or whether you're a recent immigrant into this country, welcome to your country. The reason why we're here, as Libby and Shane said, is this is an unworkable bit of legislation from our perspective. The state of the aim of the legislation is to protect Australian cultural heritage. Australian cultural heritage. But it's turned out to be something else. It's set Australians of different heritages against each other. Indigenous against Indigenous, and we've seen that at some of the meetings. It's sent Indigenous against non-Indigenous Australians. That is a terrible, terrible outcome of this legislation. We don't want that to happen, and it's not good for us. Farmers are paralysed with fear with regards to doing any operations on their farm. On freehold land, we should be able to develop our farms to do the jobs that we need to do to make a living without fear or favour, whilst still protecting cultural heritage, but not to be dictated to and not to be penalised for it. Now, we have tried to work with the government to make this workable, and that was all around the new Cultural Heritage Act. But with the announcement this morning, we're going to the old Cultural Heritage Act, and there are some serious problems with that as well, and the government's made some concessions there, but there is still a long way to go. And you know, our very strong feeling is that the legislation is not changed until the legislation is changed. So we are not giving up. So, as Shane said, he's here to accept the motions from the Katanning meeting. We met with a group of farmers in Wagen for starters. Then we went from Wagen. We had a meeting with the PGA and WA Grains Group in West Perth, wherever that might be, somewhere over here, and we formulated some motions. Some of those motions got knocked back at Katanning, and I thought that showed that democracy was at work, and a sound, reasoned and robust debate will get to better outcomes, and I thought that was very good. So there was a fourth motion at Katanning, and I will bring it up here considering that sign down there, and that was the state government recognised the importance of the live sheep trade to Western Australia, and I did say, and that was passed unanimously. And I did say to Roger Cook yesterday when we met that he needs to go to the federal conference of the Labor Party and move a motion that the live trade ban be overturned. So there are three motions we're presenting to Shane today, and that is the state government to exempt freehold farmland that has been disturbed, developed or cultivated from needing to undertake further surveys once the property's been surveyed. Now that was a motion of, and that was passed unanimously, and that was a motion of Southwest landholders, but the really important part is this actually extends out into the leasehold countries where people are running businesses in a manner that need to be protected as well. So because of the change of the Act, we can incorporate that into there as well, and Tony, I'm sure, will talk about that more. The second motion, the state government to amend the Act to recognise that intangible cultural heritage identified across freehold farmland will not impose restrictions on land usage. Now, this is important because you can't damage intangibles. It's there, we can recognise it, you can't damage it, so don't stop us from doing our job. WA Farmers supports the notion that freehold property rights extinguishes cultural heritage. That is yet to be seen. WA Farmers has started a fund to try and get some legal opinion over that, and we're still working on that. Although we've done very well so far, any further donations will be greatly appreciated. They form the basis of today, but with the announcement, this is all up in the air and continues to be up in the air until changes are made, as I said, with the changes to the legislation. We still need legal clarity over Australian Cultural Heritage Act over private property rights, whether it's leasehold, freehold or soldier settlement. All property rights need to be confirmed. Farming survey of property rights are overridden by the Australian Cultural Heritage Act to be covered by the government, and that was committed to today, and I think that's a very good outcome, but there's more to go. Disturbed land exemptions need to be in the Act. Compensation for loss of free usage. Caps on survey costs. Indefinite life on surveys. We can't have someone come and do a survey and then someone come and overturn that in the future. That is not conducive to continuous business on our farms. And there should be an onus on the state to provide the details of Australian cultural heritage on their properties. These changes need to be made to give clarity to legitimate businesses and occupiers to get on with their lives. I now pass you to Tony Seabrook. Thank you.
Thanks, John. There's no point in me going over a whole lot of things that have been said. Righto. No point in me going on and saying things that have already been said. But look, Abraham Lincoln, a long, long time ago, turned to his wife after the local governor had been speaking. Righto, how's that? Righto. Still here, still got my teeth. Abraham Lincoln turned to his wife after a 1.5 hour diatribe by the governor of the local state and said to his wife, there's nothing more to be said. He got up and gave a very short speech. It's called the Gettysburg Address. It's carved in stone inside the building. Anyway, look, the last time we did this was about 1981, and we marched up from the old Farmers Union building in Adelaide Terrace right up to here. A great bunch of farmers. Winston Crane was the president of his organisation and Max Cameron the president of ours, and that was a crowd a bit like this here today. So we had an enormous effect then, and thank you all very much for the effort of being here. I spoke to Minister Booty late yesterday afternoon, and he was at that point still trying to sell some amendments to this Act that we so much we're not approving of, we don't like. So the turnaround has actually happened last night, and it's happened on the back of the fact that everyone here today was going to be here. So don't think for 1 minute you've wasted your time being here. The impact of what the speech was going to deliver was absolutely huge. Now, there's another thing too that I allude to on a number of occasions. If you look in front of you, above the steps or the front door of the house here, it says the Parliament of Western Australia. It certainly used to be. It's not much anymore. And the callous way in which the redistributions have occurred and the loss of country power across the board over the last 10 years is awful. It's in every way disempowered country people. So if we're going to be honest, you take down Western Australia, you put Perth there, because that's pretty much the way it is. The PGA has always taken a very, very hard line on this piece of legislation. We've never stepped away from the fact that we were not prepared to amend it. We wanted it withdrawn, and this has actually happened. And it's happened because in the end, the government realised that the position was untenable. I'm absolutely certain that massive pressure was brought to bear from the eastern states by the federal government because of the harm that it's been doing to this voice referendum. And to those of you that plan on voting no,
I think there's a pretty strong message to the government here on this. So we will unrelentingly keep on fighting, and I've no doubt that this isn't over yet by a long shot. There are those of the left that will try and incorporate into the modifications to the Act of 1972 a whole lot of things that you will not be happy with, and we will be there to the absolute end. The Minister has given an undertaking that he will consult, and that's what we intend to ask him to do. Now, this implementation group that's been formed, I understand that it's going to continue. I would say to the government, disband it. I know the people that are there. I know the groups that are there. They will not serve your interests. The representation of our industry on that group is totally inadequate. And I would say to the Minister that the next thing you need to concede is to change that group to a people who actually have skin in the game, capital on the ground, because free enterprise underpins everything that our society is about. And the way that group is constituted, we will not win. We can't win. So I'd say to the Minister, the last thing you need to do is kill that off, and I'm happy to work with you in every phase of what we do here, but this needs to be legislation, as the Premier said, that suits everybody. The only thing I'd like to go back to were the Minister's, or the Premier's, remarks in the Parliament a short while ago, and that was, for God's sake, get on the right side of history. There's been a book written by a fellow Gary Johns, a federal member of the Labor Party during the Keating years. It's a great book, and it's worth handing that book to the Premier, because it's all about culture and the impact that it can have that in every way degrades the opportunity of Indigenous people in Western Australia to get on. And there's no doubt whatsoever that we need to do a great deal to help our Indigenous brothers to come forward into our society. But this Act and the Voice will not do that. Anyway, look, thank you all for being here. A fantastic opportunity, a great result. Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for coming here today. It just shows how important this issue... Righto. Thanks everyone for coming today. It just shows how important this issue is to the regions. Look, righty. So everyone hear me okay? Yep. Look, we deal with fire, flood, drought, inflation, commodity prices and weather. Government legislation like the ACH is a massive overreach for an industry that is very good at supplying good quality, safe and sustainably produced food and fibre to millions of people around the world. This Act is a massive overreach and a slap in the face to the farming community. Regional areas have massive issues with mental health. That's been, well and truly documented. This government thought it would increase that anxiety with an Act that is so open to interpretation that left farmers not knowing where they stood and how they would deal with the implications. Heritage is important in all societies, and as farmers we take this seriously. We are stewards of our properties and we look after it to the best of our abilities. The only option, which was finally realised today, after much denial and arrogance, is to scrap the Act and start again. Can we trust this government to be good to their word? The consultation needs to listen to all stakeholders rather than think that the government simply knows what's good for regional communities. I look forward to the government seeing sense and starting this process again. Tinkering at the edges of a bad Act is not acceptable. Thank you.
So before I ask Shane Love up to pass these motions to him, or however you term it, chuck them at him, I'd like to call on the Minister Tony Booty to come and say a few words. Please show him respect. He has, I think, engaged with us really well, and to get a turnover by listening to what we've had to say is actually a really bloody good thing. So, Minister Tony Booty, please.
Thank you very much, John. John, can I thank you for the invitation to speak today, and also can I thank John for inviting me to speak today, and also Tony Seabrook, and also can I thank you? Can I also thank you all for coming to Parliament today? Democracy is served well when people show their interests and concerns, and I can assure you that it was never the intention, it was never the...
Please show some respect here.
It was never the intention to cause the anxiety and it was never the intention to cause distress and concerns that has eventuated with the 2021 legislation. The intention of the 2021 legislation was to ensure that we didn't have a repeat of the Juukan Gorge disaster, which every Western Australia was very saddened by. That was the intention. Obviously, we overreached. We have listened to the concerns of the West Australian community, all parts of the West Australian community. That's why we have announced that we are repealing the 221 legislation. When I recently met with the Farmers Federation and their state council out in Bentley about 3 weeks ago, I think, a couple major concerns that were being expressed. One was the due diligence challenges from the new Act, and also the issue of the survey costs. In regards to going back to the 1972 Act, those due diligence obligations are now not there. It's the Act that at that council meeting many of the farmers said they were used to and have lived with for 50 years. In regards to the surveys, the government is going to start a process of surveying unsurveyed areas and areas of high priority, and also we're looking at when farmers and other landowners, it's not just farmers, there are other landowners, if they do want their land to be surveyed, they can approach government. The finer details of that have to be worked out. That's not part of the legislation, that's part of policy, and there's also budgetary implications. But as far as the legislation, I'll be giving notice in Parliament very, very shortly that we will be introducing a bill to repeal the 2021 legislation and revive the 1972 Heritage Act, Aboriginal Heritage Act, that people have been working with since 1972. I thank you all very much for actually. I really do respect the ability to be able to speak to you this afternoon. I know that we have caused a lot of distress. I'm very, very sorry for that. I can assure you that was never, ever our intention. We are, as the Aboriginal Affairs Minister, I am now devoted to ensuring that the legislation that we are going to introduce can work in a way that is of benefit for all Western Australians, and heritage, whether it's Aboriginal heritage or other heritage, as we know, is incredibly important. I think it was Tony or John, I'm not sure which one, said that farmers have worked their lands for sometimes generations. You have an acute sense of heritage. I know that you don't want to destroy heritage of any type, so I look forward to working with you and moving forward so we can have a regime that you can feel comfortable with and that you can enjoy your livelihood and the industry going forward. Once again, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Minister Booty. Just finally, I'd like to call on Shane Love so we can hand over the motions from the Katanning meeting to be presented in Parliament. I think all of the politicians of this state have got the message that democracy was not working too well, and I think we as a group have shown that we can make it work for everybody. So well done to all of you and anybody else who's put their effort in. Thank you. So I'd like now to call on Shane Love, Leader of the Opposition. And I don't think I need to read them out again, Shane, but you can tell us what you're going to do with them. But here you go. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. And once again, congratulations to all of you who have put such an effort in over the last 5 weeks. And we've seen this reversal, which has been announced today. And I've taken on board the motions that came from Katanning. We'll look at them. Obviously, the landscape's changed a bit on some things, but we'll work with those to ensure that when we're looking at the new legislation or the old legislation, which will come back, any modifications to that take on board your concerns as highlighted here. So thanks very much. Congratulations to you all, and I wish you a safe journey back to your farms and your homes and your businesses. Thank you.
John said right into it, so I'm right into it. There's one person I would really like to congratulate through the whole of this debate that we've been having. We weren't really getting anywhere. We weren't getting the traction. And then Neil Thompson called me up one day and he said, how about a petition? What do you think, Tone? What about it? You'll need to propose it and I'll do it. And so without Neil actually initiating that petition and getting those signatures together, this was the pivot point that the whole debate, it pivoted on that petition. So look, I'd like to ask Neil just to say a few words, but you probably, most of you don't know who he is, but he's had a huge part to play in what's happened here. So Neil.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the single word that I want to give today. Thank you for the support. As parliamentarians, we cannot represent you without your support. So thank you. Thank you for bringing yourselves here today. Thank you for signing the petition. Thank you for having your voices heard in those forums so that this government was held to account. This government was held to account and in an unprecedented way changed course. This has never happened, as far as I'm aware, in the history of Western Australia, where a bill has been introduced into the Parliament, passed, and within 4 weeks the decision has been made to repeal. That is only because of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Neil. I think it's really also extremely important to acknowledge that, WA farmers, pastoralists and graziers and WA Grains Group have worked really hard together on this. We've met on a few occasions. As I said, we've had a bit of argy-bargy, but that's what democracy's all about. Sound, reasoned and robust debate. And sadly, that didn't happen with this bill. So, look, just finally, I think I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today. With the risk of the rain, some people have come huge distances, and I think that is really appreciated. I think this is an amazing turnout and a win for democracy. Thank you very much.
While you're waiting for... No? Yes? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so we're just behind the scenes here. There's Tony. He's a little bit camera shy, but many would have seen Tony up in 2J. Because he has legal actions, he, as I understand it, built a passover over a culvert on his property and is currently before the courts. It would be interesting, Tony, with Tony Buddy just announcing he's scrapping that. Where do you think that should leave you?
Well, he's only scrapping the 221 Act, not the 1972 Act. So the 1972 Act's still there, so they'll still continue with their prosecution because they're prosecuting me under that Act, not the new Act.
And I think...
They started in January prosecuting me. We're still going.
And I think, so Tony, yeah, you're happy to keep going while you're trying to get a line in Yep, sure, so get up there to see. Tony, you raised a very, very interesting point there, that there is, yep, there we go. He's going up to... So Tony Maddox has a property up in 2J. As he just said, he is being prosecuted under the old Act because he built a passover in order to access his property, a passover over a water culvert. It would be impossible for him to access his property unless he did that. And they have come out and looking to, as you heard, commence prosecutions in January this year. And what a lot of people really should understand is that the Act as it stood before these amendments, before they passed in December 21, and also before they came into effect in July 1 this year, the Act does have some extremely onerous provisions within that particular Act there. The question is now, in the face of defeat, and one would say that this is certainly a defeat for Roger Cook and Tony Buddy administering this, will the government weaponise the Act as it stands now and take a vindictive approach against the likes of Tony Maddox and cease prosecutions or continue with that prosecution? So if Tony Buddy really stood by what he said, what you've just heard him say, he would also engage in a consultation process with John about that culvert that he needs to get on in order to his property. So that would be a very interesting question, one that many people can actually follow that particular case, because as you've heard many a times from Tony Seabrook, from the graziers and pastoralists, this is not over. So we're going to try and see if we can get you a few more comments. We might just duck up quickly and get to Tony Seabrook. I do want to see if I can just get one for him. So Neil Thompson, certainly, and there we have front and centre with John. So that scene's down here at Parliament House, and you've just heard what was, I guess, unprecedented comments from Tony Buddy in relation to admitting, I guess there was some dissent amongst the crowd when he first started saying that he did not intend to cause harm. And you certainly would get a different response, as I just outlined with John Maddox, as to what he feels in relation to that harm. And I might just wander up to the step, retrieve my other mic without trying to... Oops, sorry. Let's go.
Sorry.
Just making sure the second mic's off. So Clayton's just bringing you some footage there, the farmers, and to be interesting to see, we will try and see if we can get an idea of some of the distances WA farmers have driven in relation to this, whilst we wait to see if we can just get a quick comment from Tony Seabrook in relation to events today down at West Australian Parliament House. Hopefully the audio and the stream has come well. We've done up another rig here. Clayton's been experimenting behind the scenes, and hopefully you've enjoyed the ability to be able to, without making you seasick, bring you two different viewpoints of the footage. So we've seen your comments come through, a couple that I would like to pick up on. There was the comments, we of course have seen the Liberal Party leader, Libby Madam, who came out and spoke about the implementations of these Act. And interesting to note that, I mean, I personally would be perhaps asking her that where is the conflict of interest if she's opposed to this Act, that she supports the Voice. And of course on the weekend the Federal Coalition Party came out and have made the formal decision that they are opposing the Voice federally, yet in Western Australia, Libby Madam, the leader of the Liberal Party, is supporting the vote yes for the Voice. So you can see it wouldn't be hard to establish that there is some type of disconnect there, but that would be that we are starting to get a few spits. I might just jump in line while Clayton just brings you that. So this is in line here to talk to Tony Seabrook. Of course, is the head of the Pastoralists and Graziers Association here in Western Australia. I love seeing some of the station names of the owners that come down. They wear it. It's a badge of honour. It's absolutely fantastic to see when the country meets the city. Maybe if I hold the mic flag down a little bit lower, I might get Freedom Media WA on Channel 7 on their interview in the background there. There we go. I think that's about right there in relation to that.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Well done. Well done, buddy. You guys coming back in for tomorrow?
I tell you a story.
Yeah, I'm an older, so they'll keep on going.
How was the coffee on the drive up? Any good? Coffee, yeah.
Oh yeah, not bad, mate.
It's really interesting.
How far have you come today?
I've just come from down Armidale way today. Yeah.
And what did you think of the comments by the Minister, Tony Booty, that he, I guess it's interesting to say that he didn't mean to cause the intent, yet with 30,000 signatories he didn't hear that, but he heard you today.
We'll just see what happens with that. You know, we've heard some pretty positive things come out of from Roger Cook today and Tony Booty, I guess, but until it's all said and done, we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, and you're waiting to say well done to Tony Seabrook, so not trying to jump the queue, but we will. So, of course, many people are wanting to say, that's fine, we'll wait. Yeah, we'll wait. We'll keep going. Plenty of people wanting to say thank you to Tony Seabrook for his efforts in relation to this. You've heard the background and the context that he approached Neil Thompson, who is down behind me doing an interview with Legacy Mainstream Media. We'll try and bring you that. But it was Tony's, I guess, push to table that 30,000 signatory petition, of course, which you heard resulted in comments of the Premier saying that people need to get on the right side of history of this today. Tony Booty, back in Parliament previously, Tony Booty has come out saying, well, you know, maybe they weren't on the right side of history. But there we go, and also the reference, the unparliamentary comments by Roger Cook. Yeah, so Tony, we are live streaming, so yeah, straight down there. So with plenty of comments coming in there. I would perhaps just like to ask you this: for those in the city that would take this as a win, and it is, and not to detract from that, but how concerned should the West Australian people be with the original Act as it stands? Some of the provisions in there are quite onerous.
There's a farmer in Tujay right now that's in really deep strife over a culvert that he put over a small creek on his entranceway to his homestead, and he's in strife under the old Act. So there are provisions in there that are pretty damn dangerous too. It's freehold land, and he didn't intersect with heritage, he intersected with culture. And so the culture aspect of it is hard to measure and very dangerous.
So to be fair to say, Tony, that as you've said in your address here to WA farmers, that this issue is not over by any long means.
It's not over by any means, and most of all, we didn't go to where we should have gone to. The farmers were here, but this is about every landholder, a small block in Mundaring, Mundajong, up in the hills, a school oval, a playground. Every single part of land ownership in the state was going to be impacted by this. And I don't know enough about the 72 Act to really be able to speak that strongly on it. But we also need to be very careful that a government that's angry doesn't suddenly decide it's going to enforce parts of that Act that we don't even know about.
Because I guess that historically that has been one of the issues with the Act. People might say, well, where did this come from? It's more the enforcement, that they haven't been enforcing that, and not putting words into your mouth, but the inference that I get from that is, could the government become vindictive and start weaponising the old provisions?
Look, we'd have to hope not. I mean, that would be totally unproductive, and it wouldn't be in the spirit of what happened today. But look, in the end, it comes down to bureaucrats and what they decide to do. I hope they won't. What we've got right now is a piece of legislation that at its core was racist. It was going to stir up animosity between Indigenous people and the rest of the community. Yes. And that's deadly dangerous. I would say to any people that are involved in any of the regulations or the drafting of changes to this legislation, keep in mind that if you give Indigenous people power over freehold land and over the normal activities that people that own that land are going to carry out, this will not be harmonious within our society, and it's crucial that we don't allow it to happen.
Tony, many people wanting to say congratulations. I won't hold you up any further. I would just like to ask you this one last question. For those in the city, we reach predominantly Western Australia, and also predominantly the Western metro area. How can the people at home that live in the suburbs help support the WA farmers on this issue?
Oh, look, in a million different ways. Farmers are feeling very abused and bashed at the moment, and we've got a government that's not been supportive of a lot of the things we do. The live export trade is one, use of glyphosate is another one, GM crop technology. The list is as long as your arm of all these areas where farmers are feeling as though they've been cast out into the wilderness. So look, the simple thing would be supportive of us. Just live export is a massive industry for all of us. Be supportive. Yep. Give us a hand to do what we do. We produce magnificent food and lots of it, and just give us a hand to do what we do and stop those crazies out there that want to intersect with what we do.
There we go. That's, you've heard it directly from Tony Seabrook. Thank you very much, Tony.
Pleasure.
Appreciate your time.
Good stuff.
And yeah, we'll let you get back. I'm sure many of people.
I've got a jacket on the phone. I'm going to grab the thing before it disappears. So
no worries at
Thank
all.
you very much.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much. So a call there from Tony Seabrook to say get behind West Australian farmers. They are copping it hard. Of course, as he just mentioned there, the live cattle and sheep export industry that was mentioned during the address here. But that's another. In fact, that particular issue came into effect. One of the first things that Labor did when they came in was ban live exports and push forward or implement legislation to do exactly that, which will have a huge impact. I'm just looking around to see if I can get. We might just wander through the crowd if it's, and I'll move slowly with Clayton with the gear. Colin, how are you, my friend? We'll just, hello there, we are live streaming. Anybody like to say anything, make a comment there? Perhaps to the city people? Can I ask you, Keith, if the jacket's the same, is it? Yeah, yeah, we did hear some comments coming from the back there. And firstly, can I ask, how far have you come today?
About 200 k's.
200 k's, and I guess you know, when you look collectively for these number of people to be here, the collective distance and the amount of land that owners like yourself are responsible for, it's a massive turnout. Would you agree with that?
Covers a fair bit of country, yeah.
Did you have to hold yourself back when Tony Buddy said that he didn't intend to cause harm by the implementation of these new amendments?
No. Still had to hear what he wanted to say, but you don't have to believe him.
Shows how clueless he is.
So there we go. So yeah, it's the comment just coming there. Sorry, your name?
Jeff.
Jeff. And Jeff, yeah, happy to say that again, Jeff.
Shows how clueless he is, yeah.
And well, it would be an easy conclusion to draw, because he certainly said that today he's heard your voices, but 30,000 signatories on a petition, that was not enough for him to hear those voices.
Well, be careful, don't I? But he should have been plucked out and just.
We're you know, we're not mainstream media. We're freedom media. So you know, as long as you.
Honestly, mate, they all need ripping out and just sorting out. It's just crap. And yeah, they got the majority of votes, but brought on by COVID and all them lies. That's in my opinion. But yeah, they're just in the wrong job, mate. They shouldn't be there.
And I think we just spoke to Tony Seabrook and talking about, you know, people need to perhaps still stop and think that this is not over, that the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, as it stands dating back to 1972, does have some incredibly onerous provisions within that act. Do you think...
People said to me, oh, isn't it finished, is it gone? I said, well, that's what the media's telling you, but I'm still coming to show a motion, you know, we're not happy with it. People aren't happy, yeah. So it's just got to be dropped completely.
It seems funny that it takes West Australian farmers to come actually stand here on the steps of WA Parliament for Tony Buddy, the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, to say that it's a great sign for democracy. Yet again, 30,000 signatories, that's not enough of a sign for him. So there we go. That
absorbed all the arrogance from McGowan, mate. He's just a piece of work that we don't ever see.
I'm glad you implemented the appropriate censorship there. Piece of work. We can't beep on the fly on the live stream.
Yeah, mate, that's it. You know, I don't know. They've just had too much control for too long. But the voters who put them in the box who's done it, haven't they? So hopefully next at the polls, Labor last, Greens second last.
Do you think
Liberal third last? Fuck, what have they done? What have they done?
Independents, I guess. Well, yeah. I mean, and I have mentioned this on the live stream, and I don't want to put you on the spot. You take it as a rhetorical question if you like, but you have Libby Medham, the leader of the Liberal Party, stand up and talk about these acts. Yet she's in support of the Voice, and
the hypocrites, mate. That's a nice word, is it? Or?
Well, you know, that is a great word.
Nothing. Yeah.
And I think.
Nah, the old man. You were speaking to the old man.
The old man.
So there we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for coming up. Yeah, cheers. Thank you. And thanks, Keith. Yeah, no worries. So we'll go around and just see if we can just get a few more just behind us here. G'day there, gentlemen. We are live streaming. Can we just get a quick comment? Firstly, no.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Firstly, can I ask what's your name?
Yeah, my name is Max Edwards.
Max, and
I've got my daughter and son here with me, and
fantastic.
Well, they talked me into coming actually because they're as concerned as I am about this Cultural Heritage Act. Yep. It's a disaster, and we hope that it's over now, but we're not holding our breath, because I was just saying to the others here that Labor has a hatred towards farmers, and it stems from the 1980s when farmers came down and loaded our sheep, our own sheep, out of the yards, out of the holding paddocks, onto the ships. And that was done in the mid-1980s. And as well as that, the unions were holding everyone else to ransom. That's why we don't have any manufacturing or abattoir industries left.
Yeah,
And,
good point. And I guess, you know, there's enough water under the bridge for you to actually see the impact of that. And of course, we've had on the live export industry, the Labor Party come straight out and have another crack at trying to kill those on the land with their livelihoods.
Exactly, yeah, and like I say, without our land, farmers might as well not be there, because there wouldn't be many farmers that have superannuation. It's
the farm. That's the superannuation.
That's what I was going to say, that our superannuation is in the farms. They're expensive to buy and to keep running. One wise businessman once told me that it's not buying the property, it's keeping it, the problem is. And, we work hard to try and keep our land in good condition. We don't want to smash any of these Aboriginal cultural heritage sites. That's the furthest thing from our mind.
I think you raise an interesting point there, that farmers, if you look at their livelihoods and what they do to earn the crust and put food on the table, not only for yourselves, but for the last thing that you actually want to do, if anybody has a base that's a good starting point for conservation, it's farmers.
Yeah, you should ask the people that earn their living off the land. It's just like our livestock. If we don't look after them, we don't get a return. And I'll also add that...
Please do.
That... forgotten what I was going to say now. I'm nearly 100, you know.
I'll tell you what, fighting fit, that's... I certainly... So what's your primary production?
We farm sheep and crops.
Crops,
yeah.
And how far have you come to be here today?
We've come from York Beverley area. We're in the York Beverley Shires.
Yep.
And
a central part. There's a lot of production up there. I certainly know. well, the canola crops, you know, I've been up there many a time. Those that haven't seen the canola crops in full bloom need to get up to York and have a look. It's an absolute magnificent sight to see.
Yeah, just drive along the West Talbot Road and you'll get some a view of some very good canola crops.
There's a lot of history there, West Talbot Road. I do know that one quite well. Can I ask you, we're not mainstream media, we're independent, and we go out predominantly to West Australia. And I have asked this question of Tony Seabrook. For those that, I'm not saying a disconnect, but as a man on the land that's been nearly a century in the sheep yards, what could you say? You know, how is life? How can those at home in the metro city help WA farmers?
Oh, I think we're pretty resilient lot, and I'm sure that the majority of genuine, straight-thinking Australians know that where their food comes from. I know there's a lot of people in the city that have probably never been over the hills, but all you need to do, if you want to go and visit a farm, just drop into somewhere and ask someone that's on a farm, someone living in the house, if you can have a look around or if they'll show you around. I'm sure every farmer would only be too pleased to show any city person how they try and make their income. And
wow, what a fantastic offer. I mean, you wouldn't get that from businesses, and because farming is a business, you could go into any number of businesses and say, I'm curious to see how you do this, and you'd be told no, and there you go. And would you put the kettle on?
Yeah, that's right. We'll put the kettle on, even give you a cup of tea.
Oh, that's. I think we might have to take you up on that offer there, Max. But that. So I mean, that's what people can do. You're essentially saying they can smell bullshit and they know when not to step in it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and the majority of farmers knew this Heritage Act wasn't good, and it was going to cause us major problems. I think if it hadn't been repealed, you probably would have seen a bit of anarchy because people were so worked up about it. As I was saying earlier, we don't have superannuation. Our superannuation is in the land, and farmers normally work as a family. It's a family affair. Everyone in the family knows what's going on, and that's why most farmers are very successful, because the whole family's involved in what they're doing, and it's a good way to live, and we don't have any secrets or anything to hide from anyone. You have a lot of these greenies and do-gooders that come and say, oh, you're not treating your sheep properly, or you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be mulesing your lambs. But we know how to treat them. We know what to do. We've been doing it all our, and it comes through from, my parents weren't farmers, but it comes through from years and years of learning, and that's why the children carried on, because they know how to do it, and they know how to look after the land and the sheep and everything else.
I would suggest that those that do give you that grief, the conservationists and the greenies and do push back on what you say, musing the lambs, should probably come up and give you a hand to treat a fly-bone sheep that hasn't been.
Exactly.
So it's not a pleasant sight.
You've obviously seen it and treated them.
And it's enough to make your stomach turn. Oh, and if you can see, if you're talking about, sheep, do they feel pain? That's one instance that you can particularly see that. So they need to get out there and experience that.
Well, for instance, just yesterday, my sons and daughter have just finished mulesing, and if you go out in the paddock today, you'll see those lambs, the last ones they did. They'll be running around drinking off their mother. It is not cruel. It's a very well done operation.
That's so there we go. Some fantastic insight there. I appreciate your comments there. Thanks for coming up. And yeah, my name's Lindsay. Yeah, Freedom Media WA. So we're live streaming. And yeah, for the crew there, they're a few camera shy, but some great comments. And we wish you all the best.
I hope you can use it, and I hope it's
oh, we're going live stream, so it's definitely been used.
Okay.
So so comments there, Clayton, coming through.
Plenty of comments.
Yeah, plenty of comments. So yeah, or come around, Max. Just have a look, quick. So here's Max coming behind there, just having a look at. Well, that's the stream there, Max, just showing you right there. And Clayton's just scrolling through. So we're live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble.
Someone said you're a cutie.
Oh, there we go. So yeah. Sue, who is a regular to the platform, is saying that, yeah, you're a cutie there, Max. So that's a bit of technology there for you, Max. So that what you've said has gone right out now.
Yeah, I'd encourage anyone that doesn't know anything about farming to come have a look around, and free to drop in at our place if they want to come and have a cup of tea and have a look around. We'll show them. There's no secrets in farming.
You can't get any better genuine offer than that. Thank you again. We appreciate that. We'll we'll see if we can get a few more comments there, and we can see, Sue, your comments that Clayton's just pointed out. I'm just going to try and just duck around and see. Oh, I don't want to.
Take you to catch up.
G'day there. Sorry, we are live streaming. So can we get a few comments? That
People are actually really important.
Okay. Well, no, everybody's important. Those here. Firstly, your name?
Alistair Falconer.
Alistair and.
And Ferguson Stewart.
And Ferguson Stewart. And can I ask, how far have you come to be here today?
About 300 k's.
300 k's, and I mean, don't you just love it with in Western Australia, in particular, for those that are on the East Coast, when they say about 300 k's. I mean, it's just down the road, really, and that's what farmers say. But 300 k's, you know, there would be a lot going on that you would be foregoing to be here today. What did you think? What did you think of Minister Tony Buddy's words?
Look, I guess we'll believe it when we see it. I guess what we're asking for is the fact that there was no consultation in the first place. But so, before anything happens, we'd like to know what, and have an opportunity to be involved in that.
Well, could I suggest to you that the Tony Seabrook and John Hassel from the WA Farmers and the Pastoral and Graziers Association, many farmers have been pushing for the consultation. So when you say no consultation, it's from the government.
Well, we're from the WA Grains Group, and we were never consulted.
Right, okay.
Obviously, we were...
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Wow.
No, we didn't. We've sent letters, and there was no response. And that's why we worked with WA Farmers and the Pastorals and Graziers, because it was such an important thing for our members that we really needed to make an effort. And you'd have to say that I realise now this is the first time an act has ever been repealed in WA, and it was done from the leadership of the farming community.
And I think, when you look at that, many things can be said about that, but I guess there was opportunity for the government to press pause. That's all you were asking for, 6 months pause to engage in further consultation, but they rammed it through and they continued, I guess, arrogant and ignorant to a 30,000 people signatory. Your representation for those in the grain industry, what would your membership consist of?
Well, look, we supply a huge amount of grain to the world market, our members, and we were very disappointed with the arrogance that was shown and the fact that they weren't listening, and even slagged anybody who had an opposing view off. As Libby said, dogs returning to their own vomit. That's a pretty harsh statement to make.
And Roger Cook said that not once but twice. Very unparliamentary comments that he said in relation to that.
Yeah, definitely. Very disappointing.
Yeah, it's a time, and certainly when you're talking about getting on the right side of history, that's probably the wrong side of history for Cook. To go so far as, let me sort of get right to a pointy question. Do you think Roger Cook should resign over his implementation of this? Or is that...
Yes, I do. 100%. And I think Tony Bertie needs to take some responsibility as well. You know, when you look at it, obviously, you know, as I mentioned, the mental well-being of people in the regions is documented to be, you know, probably the worst in the country.
Yep.
And this Act, as it was pushed through, and the fact that it wasn't, any concerns weren't listened to, you know, made a lot of people very, very anxious, and, you know, it was hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
You've had well, you say that the grain for WA, it is on the international market exceptionally well received. We've had just federally, the government made announcements with the barley and China easing the imports on that.
Yep.
But I mean, the person in the city who really may not understand this, what would you say to them to help them join in your battle? Because it's not over.
Oh, look, I think, you know, there's been studies done, and I've read articles that say that Australian farmers are the most sustainable in the world. We've got the lowest fertiliser use per hectare, lowest pesticide use per hectare. Our carbon footprint is one of the lowest in the world. So we are already well and truly, you know...
you're down the road in the right direction.
You know, we're well and truly leaders in our field, and we just need to be let to do what we need to do to run our business in the manner that everybody expects. And when we get a massive overreach legislation like this and other regulations that have come, it really affects our ability to do it, and it makes us unprofitable.
Have you had any feedback from any members that from July 1 actually tried to engage with the Larks to get this cultural...
I guess that was part of the problem, because there was no Larks around to engage with.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't organised. There was no, you know, there was nothing in place to even make this law a thing, because there was no Larks. And, you know, it seemed to change every day when you looked at the website to see what sites were of cultural significance, or, you know, and the rest of it. So
I guess where I was looking to go with that, but perhaps as a representative of the grain industry, has there been any talk for those farmers, or is it still too early, that may have already paid for fees and heritage surveys and implemented significant financial outlays to put things in order from July 1 for a refund? Has there been any talk in relation to that?
Look, I haven't heard of anything personally.
Do you think it should happen?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so there we go, and yeah, so about 300 kilometres, and I say that we spoke to Russell Broadbent from over in Victoria. He's got some family up in Geraldton. When we were talking about the distance, he did say and reminded me we need to excuse those on the East Coast that don't understand exactly that sort of distance there. The turnout today for people to come, the distance, you know, I've spoken to, if I add up the cumulative distance that people have travelled within about 5 people, that's over 1,000 kilometres. What do you think of the turnout today?
Look, I think it was very impressive. Obviously, you know, there's been a lot of softening up over the weekend with the government coming out in the media talking about the fact that they were going to repeal the Act, or, you know, definitely look at repealing it. There was a little bit in the Sunday paper about, you know, how they, you know, really do support live export. You know, there's all these sort of things to soften up the crowd. Plus, we got a bit of rain, so to get the people we did, I think was really impressive, and proud to be part of it.
No, that's fantastic. I guess it's an outcome, but it's not over, and that's what needs to be reinforced in relation to that. So you've also travelled.
I'm a local, but I support the Grains Group. So.
The Grains Group. Yeah. What would you say then, as a local, from your perspective, how did you get engaged to offer the support?
I was a parliamentary staff for quite some. Well, up until a couple of years ago, I saw the original version of this Act, and I was appalled then. I was very glad, very happy that it didn't come to fruition during the time that I was there. So when the Grains Group asked me to assist them with a little bit of admin work and a little bit of help, I was very happy to do that.
So can I ask you, you're talking leading up to December 21 for the amendments that have just... Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, inside working knowledge.
Yes. Both Lucy and I saw the Act in it's probably one of its original forms. Yeah. So.
And I guess alarm bells would have been ringing for you at that particular point. That would then start a consultation process. and you've been advising. To hear that you've sent submissions and the government hasn't responded, as an ex-parliamentary staffer, how does that make you feel?
Oh, undervalued, certainly, as a group. Most people don't realise that the reliance that rural communities have on grain growers, and that although they may not be a huge number, we have whole communities that exist because of grain farms. To dismiss them and their concerns, I think, was appalling.
It would be, I guess, how do you reassure people? So you're no longer in the Parliament?
No, I'm not. I'm semi-retired.
And probably well-deserved, but how would you reassure people that there are more that have the mindset of yourself still working in the corridors of WA Parliament?
And
if only I could just put into words the look on your face right then.
No, I don't think I could even try. I don't know what the people in there are thinking or how they're thinking, but it's certainly nothing good is going to come of it, as far as I can see.
That would have to be an incredibly sad indictment of the legacy of all of your work and efforts.
Well, it's what happens when government has too much power. There is no consultation. There is no concern about what people feel about it. It's a result of the government having control over both the houses of Parliament.
And we've seen, say, the by-election down in Rockingham, there was a 22% swing against the sitting member, well, against the seat, I should say, in relation to that for, what's her name, Magenta. There would be Labor backbenchers that wouldn't have a 10% margin in some of their seats. Do you feel that has sent enough of a message to the West Australian people?
The message doesn't need to be sent to the West Australian people. The message needs to be sent to the people in the House here.
But the West Australian people are the ones that are voting.
They are voting, but whether it will certainly affect the vote for this government. Whether that results in another party having enough seats to take government is another thing.
Digressing slightly, but calling on your experience as a ex-parliamentary staffer, take it as a rhetorical question. What do you see as being the right balance?
2 terms ago, this government would have had a mix with a few extra people in the lower house. In the upper house, they had a handful of independents who didn't have to follow a party line, and if they joined forces, they could be swayed. And if the issue was important enough and valued enough, and I saw that happen quite a lot.
So if I said to you the proposition that having more independents opens up a better line of communication and consultation with bills that the government are looking to put through?
Yes and no, because you can actually go too far the other way. You can end up with still a fairly large number of government seats, but if too many, or an equal number even, are spread across independents, that's not going to be a good outcome either.
Right, and a fantastic, I mean, I could talk, I've got 100 questions in my head, but I really appreciate your comments there. Thank you very much for talking to those on the live stream, and yeah, all the best going forward. We certainly hope with the grain and, you know, that's, how's the season looking up that way?
A bit dry this year.
Bit dry?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so we need some of this stuff, you know, absolutely, just down the road?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks again. We appreciate your comments. Cheers. So there we go. I'm sorry? There we go. He's just saying, yeah, so some great comments there. I'm just going to duck back to make sure, yeah, everything's everything's going well. We might, just on that note, look at perhaps winding up to just see that we've brought you the events unfolding today here at the steps of WA Parliament. You can see that the crowd, because of the weather, it was certainly chucking it down earlier. I did see John Hassel around trying to. Thanks very much.
It's all right.
That yeah. So I did see John Hassel. John's left. Oh, he's talking to the ABC. He has gone.
Yeah.
Okay. That so you work with John, obviously,
I'm the CEO.
The CEO of the WA Farmers. We are live streaming. Can we just go?
Yeah.
Sorry, your name?
Trevor Whittington.
Trevor Lindsay from Freedom Media WA, and we've asked a few people. So you're representing the WA Farmers, and I've just been. The thing that seems to be going around when I've been talking to the farmers is that there is not for the lack of wanting, but a lack of the government just not wanting to listen to or engage in consultation. What do you think of that?
It's been a really bizarre process the government has gone through. You've got to go back. The rewrite of the Act started nearly a decade ago under the Liberal and National government, under the Barnett government, and they got booted out in 2017 and didn't quite get it through. And a new minister came in, and Ken White, and they revved it up and rewrote it. And then we had, he left, retired, Junket Gorge happened, Dawson came in, revved it up again, and then we got another minister come in, Booty, spoke today, and he was responsible for writing the regulations. And he's an academic, and he's written 3 books on Aboriginal stuff. And so he revved up the regulations. And each step, it got further and further from the real world of what was actually going to be workable. And they struggled to actually consult properly. And so when they eventually dropped the regs on the industry, only 3 months, 2.5 months before due start date, we just looked at it going, this is unworkable. So we started making a lot of noise, but it's been caught up in the voice debate. The Libs and Nats have been too quiet, and it's been a lonely campaign to actually get to where we are today.
And I guess lonely, if you look back to a 30,000 signatory petition, there seems to be more company with your loneliness in that journey. That wasn't enough for the government to listen to. And we heard, what did you think of Tony Buttigieg today saying that we did not intend to cause the harm that this...
Yeah, look, they are eating humble pie. You know, this is a huge backflip. It is very embarrassing.
Yep.
They have been told from Canberra to get this off the front page as a result of the voice debate going pear-shaped. They've been told by their backbench who are in marginal seats, who are looking like they're going to lose seats, to get this off the front page. And you got a new Premier who's going, my future is not secure while this goes on, because the problems were so fundamental. They were going to have week in, week out an article in the paper of an overreach of someone claiming heritage or costing, a farmer or a small landholder a lot of money for very little outcome.
You mentioned Ben Wyatt and the ex-Labor WA Treasurer, who's now holds a non-chief executive role for Rio Tinto. How much of the tarring WA farmers with the damage that Rio did to Juukan Gorge, how much do you think that has had? Do you think that's fair?
Look, the bizarre thing about the Rio exercise is they had approval. They had a Section 18 approval. They had approval from the government to blow that gorge up. Rio could have defended themselves much more vigorously, but they panicked. They sacked the CEO and paid him out millions of dollars, and they apologised profusely. But they were legally entitled to do what they did. Now, if the government, had to wear some of that responsibility, so Rio overreacted, the government overreacted, and then it snowballed out of control. And to the extent that we were down to arguing about the security of people's property rights in their backyards.
Incredible how we got there.
Well, none of this was going to protect, or identify sites of Aboriginal heritage. One of the things we were saying is, 7,000 farmers overseeing 18 million hectares of land, most of it's been cleared. the ground's been disturbed. We had cattle and sheep wandering around, or been ploughing it and farming it. If you want, the heritage sites are invariably on top of the hill where there's a granite outcrop, and there's trees, and we can't farm it anyway. We can't clear it, so we're happy to protect it. Or it's the creek lines, which we can't farm, so we're happy to protect it. We just want security and certainty over the rest of it. We kept saying to the government, go and identify the sites, but let us, you can protect them, but let us keep doing what we've been doing on the rest of it. And eventually, the penny dropped, and they announced today they will do a survey. And said, why do we have to pay the $10,000 or $20,000 to do a survey? It's a state asset for the community. You protect it, you identify it, away we go.
I think that's great insight. So what you're saying there, that the rock outcrops, which, that's where spear tips are made, that's where they do their law, that's where they do a number of things. To take machinery in there, you wouldn't do it because the cost to you would be too much damage. It's isolated already within your paddocks. And
under the old Act, you're not allowed to destroy Aboriginal heritage. And we sort of know. We know, where they would have camped. We know where the rocks, we know what's important. It works out. The interesting thing with the mining guys, they've been digging up also the rocky outcrops, the interesting bits, because that's where they found the minerals. So that's why the heritage under the old Act was focused on them. It was a simple solution, but they just couldn't bring themselves to sit down with us and have a discussion.
Can I ask, have you had any of your members that have outlaid significant costs since July 1? And now, has there been any talk? Will they get a refund from the WA state government?
No, everyone's just gone into a holding motion. They haven't gone ahead with their dam construction or the new fences or putting a shed in because there's been so much noise in this. And we've been saying, and the fact the LARs didn't exist, there was no one to go and negotiate with. So the bureaucracy have been madly looking for people to come and actually work with the Department of Heritage. The whole system wasn't geared up, so even if people were prepared to actually go and do a survey, there was no one to talk to. Wow. So they were not ready for it. People were prepared to write cheques, but probably, fortunately, the government backpedalled in time to save everyone a lot of money and grief.
It is going to start chucking it down. We might start moving under the cover. As we move there, I'll just ask you, do you think, I've just got to come back to my question here. What could you say to those people that live in the suburb that people would take this as we're just stuck under as a victory, but it's not over? How can they offer their support? How can the public that are in the metro area offer their support to WA farmers?
Well, the number one thing is to stay engaged and stay interested, because this has an impact on our entire future, the mining, the subdivisions, the property, the cost of housing into the future, the cost of food on your plate. We're all linked into this. We all want to protect heritage. We all need a workable system that's not going to benefit just a few. So how do they best, stay engaged? Because governments will do the right thing if they know they're being watched. And that's probably the best feedback I can give.
Yeah, and today is a classic example of that. And disappointing, I guess, to hear 30,000 signatories wasn't enough. And that since the announcement in the West Australian on Saturday, there was radio silence until today.
Yeah, look, it's typical government, trying to control the messaging, trying to get in front of, obviously, the rally we'd called. And obviously a lot of people felt, when they heard the media announcements over the weekend, problem solved. Look, until we see those amendments, the black letter law, we don't know where we're going to end up, because the old Act has still got a whole range of problems in it.
It's incredibly onerous.
That's right. So big swags of Perth, the whole Swan Valley, the whole Avon Valley, the Gascoyne, Carnarvon, parts of the southwest are marked on the heritage map. You can go online and see it. You can't mow your lawn without ministerial approval under the old Act.
Under the old Act.
Under the old Act. So somehow they've got to work out how they're going to get around that. They haven't shared that with us, so we will wait and see.
We'll wait and see, and let's hope that they don't weaponise the old Act and take a vindictive approach.
Well, if they want to enforce the old Act with the full force of the law, they'd basically shut down the state. The old Act's also, the penalties are 20...
Say that again.
Well, you can shut down the state. You know, if you know, we've had that, the first real case, which is the 2J, is going ahead, culvert over a farm
We spoke
gate.
to John here
right.
earlier today.
That's right. There's thousands of these culverts across little creeks across the state. If the government's going to prosecute every single one of them, because you can't just pick one and ignore the others, then force people to pull them out, and that's just a little bit. That's under the old Act. So the fine's only 20 grand, but if they change the fines with to the new Act's regulatory fines, which start at $1 million and go to 10 million, we're in all sorts of problems. So we really, until we see the detail, we don't know.
Yeah, and it's not just the fine 20,000; it's the personal toll. I can't believe, you know, having heard John's story, that he's putting on such a brave face, because to mount a challenge against the state government in relation to this would come at a significant cost to him, no doubt.
It's going to cost him $200,000.
To defend.
That's right. He's got a reasonable case, because in the old Act, if you didn't know, they'll say, hang on, you should have known because you're a councillor for decades, you're a real estate agency holder, you have been dealing with the government and the law, so you should have known. So, interesting test case. But if the state government now sends a letter to everyone who's got a property which has got heritage under it, there's no excuses. You won't be able to mow your lawn.
Well, there we go. I appreciate the comments there. Thank you very much for that. And the wind's picked up and the rain. So there we go, live comments. A question there, Clayton?
Some people just want to thank you for your service.
Oh, no, thank you. Cheers. Appreciate that. So ending the live stream, hello, your name?
Felicia.
Felicia, hi Felicia. We're still live streaming, so you can say hello out there.
Hello,
Felicia.
how are you?
Yeah. So you came down to offer your support to WA farmers today?
Sure.
Yeah.
I may not own a piece of land, but I wanted to throw my support behind what the farmers are going through. I lived in Meriden for 6 years, and I know what the farmers are going through, and they don't need any other more layer of bureaucracy put on them, and that's it.
Alicia, 6 years living in a place like Meriden in country life, a small country town, halfway between here and Kalgoorlie, is enough for you to get a sense of the finger of the pulse of community spirit?
Yes.
And when did you leave Meriden?
I left Meriden 2011.
So made quite an impression for you to come here today from your experience in Meriden?
Yes. I still regard myself as a country girl. More than a city girl, yes.
There we go. Yeah. So that, and you say the community of farms, and we've, this particular issue, the farmers don't need this. The toll on people, and you would have seen this, in a small town, for farmers, they don't reach out for help, they don't talk about things. The mental health aspect, that's an unspoken conversation, and something that hasn't been discussed here. What do you think about that?
I think there's more to be done to the farmers. Just like you said, they don't speak out, but unless you live among them like I did, that you will see in the real sense what they are going through. When the harvest is not good, it takes a toll on them. When there are government red tapes, it takes a toll on them. And no. You need to be there to feel the pulse. And for those 6 years, I was immersed in the community.
That's absolutely fantastic to hear. It seems a little bit of a shame that it takes that type of exposure to get the understanding that you've got, but nonetheless, better that you can talk. Going forward, what do you see? You're still a country girl, but living now in the city?
Yes.
What would you like to see people in the city doing to support WA farmers?
Just throw your support behind them.
As you've done, come down today. It's been raining, thank you. And
thank you. With my umbrella. And I really want to say thank you for Freedom Media.
Oh, no,
there's a lot you are doing, and we're so grateful for that. Many things we may never have known if not for the Freedom Media. The mainstream media are not telling us what we should be hearing. So thank you so very much.
That's too kind. I did see that you were having a good chat with Clayton, who's been behind the cameras, and I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments here and giving us the insight of why you're here to support WA farmers and for your support for us. Thank you again.
Thanks
there we
a
go,
lot,
my dear.
Lindsay. Thank
Cheers.
you.
No worries.
All the best.
So there we go. On that note, Clayton is behind the camera. I'll just see whether he wants to just come out and say no. He's saying no. But on that note, right here at the doors of Parliament WA, we are going to sign off on the live stream. We've brought you the events today. WA farmers descending. Some very interesting comments that we've heard from Tony Buddy in relation to that. And it was interesting to hear the initial dissent in the crowd. If it wasn't picked up on the live stream, there was plenty of choice words said when he said that he didn't mean for these new laws to have the impact that it actually did have. So, and that's a real barometer of a sense of the disconnect between he thinks it's going smoothly, WA farmers are telling him that he's not. So on that note there, I'm going to sign off and say thank you to all of those that have watched this live stream. It's not just for our sake, it's for the WA farmers, for this issue, that what you can do from here is like and share this stream, because the more people that see this insight and see it in its entirety, because mainstream media will chop and change what they're going to do, and we live stream so that you can see it unfolding and unedited, so that you can be the judge of what's occurred. Thank you very much for those that have joined the stream today.